What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them.
Señores, la paciencia de Canadá con Donald Trump ya se agotó. Y lo más impresionante es que no están reaccionando solo con discursos, sino que con acciones contundentes. Están aplicando una estrategia quirúrgica para poder frenar a Trump y a sus abusos. Y sinceramente, lo están logrando. Hace apenas unos días se llevó a cabo una importante cumbre encabezada por el primer ministro Carney. Allí pudimos ver presentes a líderes de prácticamente todas las provincias del país. Liberales, conservadores, todos los alineados con una sola misión: responder con fuerza y con unidad contra el régimen trumpista. Más allá, señores, de todo esto, el mensaje ha sido claro. Canadá se está preparando para darle jaque mate a Estados Unidos. Y bueno, de este modo es como lo expresó el propio Mark Carney. Escuchen.
Look, Canada's strong. We can give ourselves far more than anyone can take away. We're building this great country. I just met with the Premier, building BC, building Canada, building in a Canadian way, building sustainably, building together, building positively, and that's what we're going to do. And yes, we'll come to something with the Americans, something constructive with the Americans. Thanks very much.
Mientras ocurría esta reunión, Mark Carney envió a sus ministros más importantes, Relaciones Exteriores, Finanzas, etc., a México. Todo esto para consolidar aún más los lazos con el gobierno de Claudia Sheinbaum, justo cuando Trump ha estado desatando esta guerra comercial a nivel global. Mientras todo esto sucede, también Doug Ford, premier de Ontario, conservador, salió en CNN para respaldar la postura firme de Mark Carney. Incluso, recordemos que Doug Ford fue simpatizante de Trump en su primer mandato. Pero pues ahora ha cambiado totalmente el discurso. Dice que si Trump impone aranceles, Canadá va a responder de la misma manera. Dólar por dólar. Eso sí, Mark Carney sabe que pues Canadá ya está haciendo el suficiente daño a Estados Unidos con el tema del boicot turístico y el rechazo a productos estadounidenses. Pero bueno, ir más allá es algo que podría terminar perjudicando también a los propios canadienses. Doug Ford fue muy claro en su declaración sobre Trump, y esto fue lo que dijo.
What's the general impression of Trump in Canada?
He's probably the most disliked politician in the world in Canada because he's attacked his closest family member, and that's the way we look upon it. And when I talk to the governors and senators and Congress people, even Republicans totally disagree, but they're too scared to come out and say anything because the president will go after them. Outside of a few senators, and I want to thank them for coming out and standing with not just American people, but their closest friends and allies, which is Canada. And again, we love the Americans. It's unfortunate President Trump decided to go down.
Aquí tienen otra intervención, igual de Doug Ford, en la misma entrevista. Pongan atención.
And we're lowering taxes. We're making sure we're competitive for companies to come and invest in Canada. Ontario alone last year attracted over $40 billion of investment, creating more jobs, more opportunities. I would much rather, work with our greatest ally and closest friend and increase jobs in both countries, and we can do that. We'd be the two strongest nations in the world economically. That's our goal, but unfortunately, President Trump doesn't want to go down that avenue. He wants to hurt the American people, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Ese comentario fue justo al salir de esta reunión de primeros ministros. Y es algo que dio en el clavo. Uno de los consensos principales fue que ningún acuerdo es mejor que un mal acuerdo. O sea que Canadá no va a aceptar condiciones impuestas. Están firmes, están orgullosos, están preparados. Escuchen.
Did the Prime Minister say to you when he was going to be speaking with Mr. Trump, or is there any indication of next
No,
steps?
he didn't say that he was going to be speaking to President Trump, but I'm sure he will be over the next few days. We also mentioned no deal's better than a bad deal. We don't want to get sucked in. But I just want to go on record, like I did when this whole thing started. I said the tariffs are coming, and they came all right. My next message is fasten our seatbelt. Kuzma, or USMCA, whatever you want to call it, he's coming at us hard. He is going to come at us with everything he has, and we have to make sure that we're ready. We have to make sure that we onshore as many products as possible. We need to make sure that we put money back into people's pockets until they can stimulate the economy and companies to attract more business and invest into their people, into their equipment, into the technology. These are some simple things we can do. The construction sector is very, very slow right now. Let's work with the municipalities like Mayor Del Duca, that's cutting the DC charges. It's $200 a square foot just on taxes alone before they get shovels in the ground. It's ridiculous. So we all need to pitch in.
Luego, en otro momento, Doug Ford habló sobre cómo, a pesar de que cada provincia tiene sus propios intereses económicos, la gran mayoría está unida en esta causa. Dijo algo así como que en un 98% estamos todos de acuerdo. Y bueno, aquí tienen esa parte.
I think we're all on the same page, but everyone wants to protect their sector. Alberta wants to protect their oil sector. I want to protect the auto and the steel sector. Quebec wants to protect their aluminum sector. But if that's fine if everyone has their differences. But I'll tell you, like 98% of the stuff we all agree on that we have to get moving. So that's a good thing. But we got to move quicker, and folks, be ready. This is coming. I don't even think it's my personal opinion. He's not waiting till 2026. At any given time, President Trump, not that he even follows, the rules, he could pull the carpet out from underneath us on Kuzma tomorrow with one signature. So let's be prepared. I think it'll be coming in November, in my opinion. But let's start getting ready. And we're doing.
Ahora escuchemos de nuevo al primer ministro Mark Carney hablando sobre cómo se está desarrollando estos pasos concretos que están tomando para defender y fortalecer Canadá.
I spent that meeting talking about building our country. Earlier this week, we were in Kelowna, talking about building and pivoting and building the competitiveness of our forest product sector. We're going to spend tomorrow with Canadian Armed Forces, building security and defense. There is so much for us to do, and we're very focused on doing all of that. Focusing on what we can control. And yes, we're having discussions with the Americans, but Canadians want us to focus here at home, build out home, and that's what we're doing.
Esta otra parte viene de un reporte de Global News que cubrió a fondo esta reunión. Escuchen.
When can we expect tariffs to change, sir?
While publicly quiet on the trade war, the Prime Minister privately updating his cabinet and the premiers.
I'm 100% supportive of the Prime Minister and the federal government. He's a brilliant businessman.
Ontario Conservative Premier Doug Ford has been Mark Carney's biggest booster, but he's been an outspoken critic on the need to hit back against Donald Trump.
I still stand by what I say, dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff. They understand strength, not weakness.
In a recent Angus Reid poll, 59% of Canadians supported Ford's call for more tariffs, which have brought in $2.4 billion in revenue for Ottawa in April and May alone.
Ahora bien, volviendo al tema del viaje a México, esta reunión entre los ministros canadienses y el gobierno de Claudia Sheinbaum fue pues un éxito total, porque hablaron del comercio, de la seguridad económica, diversificación ante el caos comercial que Trump está provocando. La ministra de Exteriores de Canadá incluso publicó que estos encuentros avanzaron prioridades claves como el crecimiento económico, la seguridad, cadenas de suministros más resistentes, etc. No olvidemos que Canadá también firmó recientemente un acuerdo de defensa con la Unión Europea, prefiriendo comprar armamento europeo en lugar de armamento estadounidense. Durante esa misma gira, también se acordó trabajar en temas de inteligencia artificial, rutas comerciales marítimas, estrategias energéticas compartidas, Pues bueno, también el premier del NDP de Columbia Británica, que es David Abbey, representando la ala más progresista del país, también tuvo palabras. Escuchemos lo que dijo sobre esta unidad nacional.
Now, if you wanted to design in a lab a project that reflected the values of British Columbians and Canadians, a project that really showed the path forward of how, in this moment, we're going to ensure that we are strong and standing together and building an economy and doing it in a way that is responsible, in a way that Canadians can be proud of, I think you would have to choose the Cedar LNG project. This project is exceptional on so many levels. First of all, that it is Indigenous-led and majority-owned. This is the largest Indigenous-owned energy project in North America. Second, that it's being done in an environmentally responsible way, that from the plant itself, with minimal impact on the land, to the fact that the plant will be electrified to ensure that this is some of the lowest carbon LNG in the world, displacing high carbon LNG from less responsible jurisdictions, to the fact that it enables us to access markets other than the United States for resources, getting more value for all British Columbia.
Y luego tenemos a Charlie Angus, que es el ex parlamentario, actual líder del Tour de la Resistencia en Canadá. Y él participó en una cumbre con representantes de América Central, del Sur, y propuso algo explosivo, que es un boicot internacional, con sus propias palabras, contra el régimen mafioso de Donald Trump, siguiendo el ejemplo de Canadá.
Long before America came to the war, Canadians were fighting fascists. So when you tell us that we don't have a right to a nation, when you kidnap our people off the streets and put them in concentration camps, as they're doing to your people, then we know what we're confronting. We're confronting gangster fascism.
Señores, así están las cosas. Canadá está demostrando estar unida, decidida y sin miedo. Le están diciendo a Trump y a su gente, ya basta. Y lo más importante, lo están haciendo con hechos, no con discursos vacíos. Ahora bien, amigos, ahora quiero que pasemos a hablar de una situación, a mi parecer, realmente alarmante, que es esta purga masiva de altos mandos en el FBI, por parte de la administración de Trump. La contratación de personajes, escuchen, que no solo participaron en el asalto al Capitolio, sino que estaban pidiendo abiertamente acabar con policías, tal y como lo oyen. Todo esto está surgiendo tras el despido sin explicación de varios agentes claves del FBI, como lo es Brian Driscoll, el cual fue uno de los personajes que se opuso a entregar esta lista de los agentes que investigaron el 6 de enero. No solo lo despidieron a él, sino que también a figuras con décadas de experiencia en el FBI. Incluso hay uno que acababa de hasta perder a su esposa por cáncer. Bueno, el motivo de esto es simple, señores, no alinearse con la narrativa trumpista. Y por si fuese poco, el Departamento de Justicia ahora tiene en sus filas, como les dije hace un momento, a un ex asaltante del Capitolio, que fue uno de los grabados gritando "acaben contra los policías". ¿Será que este es el nuevo estándar de la justicia? Veamos de qué se trata.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. On this Friday morning, a live look at Capitol Hill at 47 past the hour. A senior FBI official who briefly served as acting director at the start of President Trump's current term has been fired with no explanation. That's according to two federal law enforcement sources. That official, Brian Driscoll, made headlines when he resisted a Justice Department directive to turn over a list of agents who had worked on January 6th cases. Let's bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delanian. Ken, what more do we know about this dismissal?
Good morning, Nika. This dismissal was actually part of a wave of firings of senior officials, including Steve Jensen, the head of the Washington field office, who was heavily involved in investigating the January 6th cases, and a man named Walter Giardina, who was involved in the investigation of Peter Navarro, that Trump advisor who went to prison for defying Congress. Giardina had just lost his wife to cancer a couple of weeks ago, and he was summarily fired. And this is a part of an ongoing purge that the Trump administration is conducting of FBI leadership. I posted a story earlier this week that noted that a large chunk of the special agents in charge across the country at field offices have been forced out of their jobs, and that those firings were disproportionately impacting women and minorities in those jobs. In this case, it's some senior white guys, but some pretty famous folks inside the Bureau. Brian Driscoll became something of a folk hero, as you mentioned, when he was named the acting director, accidentally, by the way. His name was put in the wrong place in a chart. And then he stood up to a plan by the Trump administration that seemed like it was poised to fire hundreds, if not thousands, of FBI agents who had worked on those January 6th cases. He resisted that. And yet he retained his job, and his continued employment in the Bureau, as well as with Jensen and some of these other people, provided a little bit of hope that it was possible to dissent from some aspect of Trump administration policy, or at least to push back and keep your job. Well, that day is over. The message has been sent very clearly, and morale inside the FBI, guys, is about as low as I've ever heard it described as I talk to people.
Let's move over to the Justice Department, Ken, which has hired a January 6th rioter who was captured on video calling law enforcement Nazis and yelling, quote, "kill them," during the 2021 Capitol insurrection. And NPR just uncovered that video. Take a look.
You guys are disgusting. I'm former law enforcement. You're disgusting. You are the Nazi. You are the Gestapo. You can't see it because you're chasing your pension, right? Your pension. Your retirement, right? That's what runs your life, your retirement. The sad thing is they're not even going to get their pension because it's going to be worthless. And shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah.
All right, that is former January 6th defendant Jared Wise. He was not convicted of any crimes related to January 6th, following President Trump's order to end all Capitol riot prosecutions. NPR reports that Wise is now working as a senior advisor for the DOJ, though his exact role at the department remains unclear. A DOJ spokesperson released this statement to NPR, quote, "Jared Wise is a valued member of the Justice Department, and we appreciate his contributions to our team." Wise had previously served at the FBI from 2004 to 2017, where he worked on international counterterrorism and eventually became a supervisory special agent. Joe, where do we begin here?
Well, I mean, according to the NPR report and the video, now have somebody that's inside the most important law enforcement agency in America, talking about, do I have it right, Ken? Kill cops? Is that the language? Kill them? I mean, saying that, calling police officers that were trying to protect people's safety, and government buildings, calling them Nazis and the Gestapo. This is very bizarre coming from a political party holding up such a person that's calling for the killing of cops. Very bizarre that he's working in the preeminent law enforcement agency in America for a president and a party who claim to be supporting law enforcement officers and claiming it's the liberals that don't support law enforcement officers. What can you tell us about this? This person who, at really the most heated time on January the 6th, was calling for the killing of law enforcement officers.
Yes, it's mind-boggling, Joe. I will say that Mr. Wise did express contrition for those comments during his trial, which was cut short when Donald Trump ended all the prosecutions of January 6th defendants and pardoned them all. But I think what we're seeing here is the consequences of an administration that has rewritten history. It's rewritten the history of January 6th. And as Donald Trump pardoned all the defendants, including those who assaulted police officers, and is now going about firing FBI agents who worked on those cases and FBI supervisors, and then hiring people who were part of the riot. And, to your point, Joe, I suspect if you polled most Americans, even most Republicans, they're not necessarily on board with this. This is a small fraction of the MAGA movement that is under these incredible delusions about the fact that there was no violence or that somehow the January 6th riot was justified. But Donald Trump doesn't care. Those are the people that are empowered in his administration, the people that believe that way, the people that believe that the FBI was part of a corrupt deep state. In fact, the men leading the FBI have expressed those beliefs for years. So regardless of what percentage of the population or even the Republican Party actually believes this or cares about it, these are the animating features of the Trump administration. They have rewritten history, and they have co-opted the Justice Department and the FBI as tools of their political ends, and they're going about purging people who have beliefs that they don't like, and they're hiring people that you would not expect, and this is a great example of that.
Ken, as you say, the early second term here move by President Trump to empty the prisons of January 6 convicts, people who attacked police, attacked the Capitol building, was an early indicator of how this second term was going to go for President Trump. You talked a little bit about morale inside the FBI, and we talk about somebody like Brian Driscoll, almost a 20-year veteran, a respected guy within the FBI, had held some major posts, hostage rescue, things like that. For him to be dismissed effectively because he wouldn't turn over a list of agents who worked on these cases around January 6th, with, as you say, anyone who's honest with him or herself or has a pair of eyes knows was a terrible day where criminal acts were performed. What is it like to be a career FBI agent, a career FBI official right now, or in the Justice Department for that matter?
There is a climate of fear, Willie. I'll say that Driscoll actually survived resisting turning over the list. He was fired because he refused to fire one of his subordinates, an FBI agent who is a pilot who was flying Kash Patel around in the FBI jet, but had previously worked on the Mar-a-Lago investigation. And Driscoll stood up to the idea that that man should be fired. Now Driscoll's been fired, and that agent was also fired, according to our reporting. But to your larger point, morale is in the toilet. And there is a climate of fear where, for example, one of my sources is a special agent out in a field office somewhere, and mentioned that a new special agent in charge came to talk to employees. And this agent had a good reputation as a long-time career FBI official. But this new supervisor, every other word out of his mouth, every other sentence was effusive and obsequious praise for Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And my source said he was just so disgusted, and it felt to him like in North Korea. He just thought that this man was debasing himself, and that this is what it had come to inside the FBI, that you have to do those kinds of things to preserve your viability. So not only are people being fired, people who have the ability to retire are retiring. People are leaving for other jobs. And so decades of counterterrorism, counterintelligence, white-collar fraud experience is walking out of that building, and that will take a generation to rebuild, guys.
MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent.
Señores, estamos presenciando cómo Trump está desmantelando desde adentro una de las instituciones más importantes del país, que es el FBI. Brian Driscoll es un veterano respetado y ha sido despedido por negarse a traicionar a sus compañeros. ¿Qué clase de liderazgo castiga la lealtad a la ley? El tipo resistió entregar una lista de agentes que simplemente hicieron su trabajo y lo echaron. Y luego, cuando se negó a despedir a un subordinado que había participado en investigaciones incómodas para Trump, también lo votaron. Lo más enfermizo es el tema de Jared Weiss, que es este hombre que fue grabado llamando nazis a los policías, gritando que los mataran, etc. Y amigos, ahora es asesor en el Departamento de Justicia. O sea, esto ya es algo demencial. Donald Trump no solo indultó a los que asaltaron al Capitolio, sino que ahora quiere premiarlos con cargos de poder. ¿Cómo se supone que alguien puede seguir creyendo que este tipo defiende el orden o que respeta la fuerza del orden? Seguramente algunos me dirán, bueno, pero Trump tiene derecho a elegir a su equipo. Claro, pero a costa de despedir a expertos con décadas de experiencia, solo por no ser leales a él. Esto no es una política partidaria, señores, esto es una purga. Y no es solo el tema personal, porque es un ataque directo al sistema judicial del país. Lo que está haciendo Trump es llenar las instituciones con personas que no creen en la ley, sino que solo creen en el trumpismo, en su culto. ¿Qué pasa con la experiencia acumulada? Los agentes que pasaron años combatiendo el terrorismo o el fraude, muchos hasta están renunciando por miedo. Literalmente dicen que se sienten como en Corea del Norte, donde al parecer hay que alabar públicamente a los leales a Trump solo para no perder el trabajo. La justicia ya no se está cosiendo en los tribunales, sino que en las oficinas del poder. Cuando un presidente comienza a despedir a quienes lo investigaron y a premiar a quienes lo defienden con violencia, amigos, estamos frente a un sistema que dejó de ser democrático. Yo no sé ustedes, pero esto, señores, no solo es preocupante, es aterrador. Pero bueno, ¿qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que lo que está pasando en el FBI es una simple reestructuración? ¿O realmente estamos ante una purga política? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Políticamente en desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.